Hi everybody, my name is Jeff. Today I've got kind of an oddball project we're going to try anyway. It's got a friend of mine, she's got a Case 530 tractor that used to be her dad's and her grandpa's actually, I guess it is. And we haven't been able to find tie rods for it. We've got one, well this is a John Deere one here that was bad and everything that way, been replaced. On a John Deere they set either with these notches for adjustment to the bottom or some of them are on top. Well, on a Case it actually sets the other way, so your ball joint end would be up this way. Well, we haven't been able to find these. You can get the tie rod end for the other end, but you can't get this one. And I started out, I was just going to make a piece out of the shafts, but since we had this other tractor in here that we took these off of, what I'm doing now, and this one I actually have done because I tried it already because I didn't think it was actually going to work, so I wasn't going to bother doing a video. But I put it in the forejaw and turned the end down to a 1/2 inch diameter. Now it's a little over, it's about 502 thousandths. And what I'm going to do is cut the end off of this and bore a hole in it, make it a press fit, and then weld it in place. And for no more than this tractor's ever used anyway, she wants to restore it and drive it in parades. These will look original. You won't be able to tell it unless you really know what you're looking for, and it'll do good enough if it works. But it's an experiment to try, and mounting this in the forejaw, I was actually clamping, well I'll show the one I've got in the truck. I was clamping top and bottom and then on each side and got her lined up and managed to turn it without, I was afraid with the extra any tool pressure she could make the ball swivel. It wasn't too likely, but there's always a chance, and so I figured for sure it'd kick it out, so I wasn't going to do the video. Well, now I'll set it up and show you what I'm doing. I'll get a shot of it closer first and then turn this other one down. We'll see if this one works. I don't know if it shows up too well in the camera there. You can see I left the nut on it here, so it's pressing on that and helps keep it flat. I've got a piece of aluminum on the back side. Okay, where did I set the other one down? One of those days. But it's got these ridges on there, and the way it worked out in my chuck, where the notches are and the jaws ended up off of these two, so I've got a piece of aluminum over it, which helps keep it perpendicular and everything that way. And set the dial indicator up, and I've got it pretty good, and even on the center. The other one was slightly off on the center. This one's looking pretty nice. This one I am going to keep a little bit of pressure in there when I machine it. When I did the first one, it was farther off on the tip out there, so I couldn't use the live center. Well, if I would have took probably another 10 minutes of screwing around to get it lined up, I might have been able to. But I'm only leaving the piece, I believe I left an inch that'll go inside that other shaft. Hundred thousandths to go, so probably do it in 2 passes just to, so I don't move it. $25 thousandths, 50 thousandths cut, 25 each side. Should be about 50 left to go. actually about 48. I know a lot of you won't like the idea of welding a tie rod on, considering there's a piece of wire holding it on now, and doing it this way with a press fit in the first place, I wouldn't hardly have to do any more than tack it. As I say, a 530 case isn't that large of a tractor, and it's not going down the road. It should work fine. I trust it a lot more than the piece of wire. According to that, it was about 1/1000 over, so when I drill and bore that other shaft, I can adjust it to that. I believe that's what I was on the first one too. Here, what I did last time was actually leave it in there and leave the live center against it until they get cut part way through, just because of the extra pressure against it there again. It's not the best idea. It works. Shot of my hand now. Could just let it drop off there. Even there, it's, I guess the center's out of the way. It's good enough there. I'll just chamfer that edge a little bit, then I'll knock the rest of the threads off that are in here, and that's where I'm going to do a light bead around it just to do it that way. So I'll get the other pieces in and get some video of that. I think as many times as it's happened to me already that I would have realized it, caught it, but the camera wasn't recording. And I waited, and now with the way the light is off to the side here, I didn't notice that it didn't say record at the top of the screen, but this one I already cut off and was mentioning that where this notch is for one of the bolts for on the John Deere, the case doesn't have one until the next one. So when I bore the hole for the bolt or the tie rod, which is a ball joint end, a 1/2 inch diameter will just about come through into that one. So after I get this in and weld it around it, well, I can actually set off to this angle compared to the notches. Then I'm going to build this one up and weld it shut, or I may braze it for that matter, but probably weld it. But that way where it pops through, there'll be a little spot weld back here, and there's only going to be a light bead around this. It's more for looks than needing it for strength, but it will help hold it in. There isn't much pressure going out, unless you happen to hit a big rock or something. Well, then there could be, but get set up and get the hole bored. Okay, we'll get a center drilled. I'm actually going to kind of sneak up on the hole size a little, probably do like 1/4, then maybe 3/8, and then the 1/2. And if I'm lucky with the little bit over I am on the pieces, I shouldn't have to bore it. But we're going to try one and see. This is on my Hamilton 14-inch lathe, so I don't have variable speed on it. Running about 460 RPM. I've actually only got 2 speeds the way they've got that motor set up, all 4 with the back gears. The guy that had it, you got the lower speed here than the higher one, so you got about 460 and 530, I believe it is. So that should be it. Backed it up too far. Okay, I actually took it out of the chuck and I actually got her tapped in with a rubber or lead mallet, I should say. The rubber one wouldn't quite do it, it's bouncing too much. A couple taps of the lead she did start, so may even, yeah, I'll just do it in the press, it'll be easier. Okay, pressed in very nice. If it shows up, you can see the little shiny spot in there where she came through the hole. And we'll take her on the TIG welder and just do a little bead around here. The rubber comes right off. It is full of grease, so once I heat her up, that's going to burn the grease out. And you just put the zerk back in, fill her back up. Shouldn't get hot enough with the little bead I'm going to put on there to matter anyway. But if you aren't familiar with what it's for, on these tractors, if you got a sleeve that goes on here, this goes inside a tube, the tie rod that's on the inside, and this one's out at your wheel. I suppose if I turn it around this way, it'd be easier to see. But this one's out at the wheel, to the arm, to the spindle. And if you want to change for basically different corn rows or using it for different things, you can move the rear wheels out and move the front axle out. And so then you adjust the tie rod. You can put the 2 bolts through in any 2 spots along the length of this. So you can move the tires way out or keep them in tight. And in this case, as I say, I believe it's going to be about right there. I've only got 3 notches exposed. That's why originally I was going to make one out of just a 3/4 inch rod and just put the few notches in on the mill. But you know, I wouldn't even have had to do all of them then, because this one's probably never going to get adjusted while she has it. Someday somebody else buys it and goes to adjust it. Well, that might be a different story. They'd have a fun and wonder why the hell didn't have all the notches in. Thanks for watching. Well, I'll probably show a video of the other 2 too, so this may not be the end. I finally found out why it didn't record last time. I went to turn it on this time and was setting the indicator up and glanced up and see it wasn't on. Of course, now all you're seeing is my arm. But what it is the way where the button is in the corner of the screen is way down where my thumb's too big for it and I'm not hitting it right. And I do believe there is a button on the side of it where I can press for record too. I'll have to look for that one of these days. Actually, just going by what the other one was, we're pretty darn close. Not quite as lucky in that direction. They're actually only about 3 thousandths off, so. This one I didn't wire wheel off, so that would do it too. A little rust on there. Close enough for who it's for. Jennifer will get a kick out of that. It's her tractor. But this one, the other one, the old taper popped out of it. And on this one I had to cut it off in there so it wouldn't hit my tool post or anything. I almost got it to pop out, but not quite. The other one bites the best. Yeah, this is just a cheap 20-ton Harbor Freight press. I took and tapped it in part way already, so it's going to go easy. It ended up with about a 3.5 to 4 thousandths press fit. This one is set up with the air over hydraulics too. Something like this, I just soon feel it. Our big press, now we never have figured out, it's basically a homemade one. We got it out of a foundry, and it's got a ram out of an old dump truck. And by going by figuring the size of the ram and everything that way, it should be at least a 100-ton press. But right now the hydraulic pump took a dump on that, and that'd be more than I want to use for doing this anyway. I did get it with right and the left was the one thing I had to make sure of. This would be on the left side because on this tractor the notches are facing forward, and the first one I did, I've got the ball turn, or the whole tie rod end turn so that it's the opposite way. And that'll do it. Now I might set up and show you a little TIG welding too, but you'd see enough of that on YouTube anyway that I may not bother. If I do, well, you'll see that. Otherwise, thanks for watching.